Today I'm going over this cat in the window frame scene here, and I'm going to show you how it goes together. I'm going to talk a little bit about materials and some other tips and tricks that you can use to make it just the way you want it. So first of all, this particular version I have in my hand is 10 inches square, but the entire file is easily resizable to any size you want. I'm going to include two different sizes in the initial file, both this 10-inch one and also a 5-inch one. But you can, again, grab all of the pieces in there and resize it to whatever you want. As long as all the pieces stay the same, you'll be in good shape. Now, let's talk about materials and let's talk about layers. You can use any materials that you want. I used MDF here because it's cheap, and then I just painted the layers the way that I wanted them. But you can use anything you want. There are actually 12 layers on this particular version here, but don't let that scare you. First of all, if you're using MDF and you want to do a 10-inch version like this, you can get two layers per piece of MDF. So really, where I get mine, I get it for $2.50 a sheet. So we're not talking about a whole lot of money. So, 10 or 15 bucks to make this at this size, depending on how much you pay for your MDF. So it's not that bad. But you can also leave out some layers here, either for cost purposes or if it's just not the look you're going for. While I've got it in my hand, let me show you just one little thing that I really like too. You can take this back layer off and just use it like this, which I think is a really great look as well. You can hang it on the wall that way. You can stand it somewhere. It looks really cool just to be able to see through it. So consider that as an option. And we'll talk about painting and other things in just a moment. Let me set this to the side and we'll talk about the smaller one, because the smaller one I don't have glued together, so we can talk through the different layers here. All right, so starting from the top, you've got just a frame here that's just the frame that the cat will sit on. And of course you can leave the cat out if you want, if you're not a cat person or whatever. But there's this one here. And then there's the cat. And on the back of the cat, I've included 3 different circles that you're going to glue together to allow the cat to sit on this frame and not fall into there, and it'll just be glued onto this tree here or wherever you decide to put him. Okay, so there's the cat. Then the next frame is the next layer is the inside of the frame that the cat sits on. And then there's, of course, the window panes. And then the next couple here are different layers of grass or just rises that go into the distance. And these are some of the ones you could choose to omit if you either wanted to make it more narrow, which I personally love the depth, but if you're trying to save materials, you could omit this one if you want to. And then here's a tree layer. And now here's the first of a couple spacers. Let me talk about spacers for a second. All this is just what it looks like. Is just a spacer to create some depth between one layer and the next, and it looks really, really great. Let me pause for a second and talk about material thickness. This is 1/4-inch MDF. Everything else I'm using is 1/8 inch. You can make this out of whatever you want. Of course, if you make it with the thicker material, it's just going to get deeper and have more visual depth. It's going to look great. In this case, I literally was using scrap pieces of MDF that I have around the shop here, and so I decided, I'm going to make some thicker spacers that'll just give some visual depth. You can leave these out, of course, to either save space or save material, or if it's just not the look you're going for. So then the next layer is the one with the deer on it. Then we have the 2 mountain layers. Now you could leave this one off or this one off if you chose to. It's up to you. But I like the look of that, so you can paint those different. You'll see in that one there, I painted this one purple and this one blue. Do whatever you want there. Another spacer you could leave out if you want. And then the layer that has either the moon or the sun, depending on what you want to call it. And then there's the back layer. Now again, you saw earlier that you can leave the back layer out if you want. So let's see how many layers do I have here at the moment. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We got 10. I left out 2, so there's 12. And of course, the thickness of this doesn't really matter at all. You can make it whatever you want. It will stand up just like this. You can hang it on the wall. I think hanging on the wall would look beautiful. And of course, you can paint them however you like. Or if you want to use natural woods and stain them, that would be absolutely gorgeous as well. Again, you can shrink this down a little smaller if you want to get more on a sheet of material and save materials, or if you're just looking for the smaller look. I'm going to go ahead and make one myself smaller today just to see how small I can make it. I'll probably try maybe 4 inches and see what happens, but eventually when it gets too small, the legs are going to have trouble and be a little brittle and maybe break there on the deer. But other than that, it should be okay. But again, you can resize it to whatever you want. Now, let me show you one little quick thing that maybe some of you have seen on my post yesterday that I thought was a cool addition. I cut the layer with the deer on it out of clear acrylic. And if you put that behind the layer with the deer so that it's just exactly the same, and do this, let's see if I can line this up. And then if you stick that tab into an LED base and turn it on, it's a really cool look. Check this out. So that's another way that you could use this. Of course, obviously, or maybe not obviously, the larger version really won't work terribly well in that because it's just really too big for the base, and I don't know how the light would get up into that section. But you can give it a try. I did try some other layers to do that with instead of the one with the deer, and that one really turned out the best. So that's kind of a really cool potential add-on there for that. Let me think, is there any other tips? I can't think of anything at the moment. Oh, when you're painting them, maybe this is obvious, but when you're painting them, when you're painting parts that are going to be covered up by other parts, you could just skip painting that entirely if you just want to save the time. Like, you don't need to paint this frame on any of them except for the front because you're never going to see them. And technically, you don't need to paint right here because it's covered up there, and so on here. And then the bottom of, like, you don't need to paint all this. So you could save the time and the paint by not painting those if you wish. I think that's about all the tips I have at the moment. I've got a really cool add-on that I'm thinking about creating over in the next few days. And if I do, I will definitely send it for free to everybody who's already purchased this. We'll see how it works out. I think it'll be really cool. Anyway, I'd love to see what you guys make. Show me some pictures and ask me any questions that you have. But until then, as always, I'll see you in the next one.